We know that 1 of 3 people in the world are diagnosed with cancer, and well, we're all more or less affected, because if it's not one of us, it's somebody near to us. So, well, we need all the hands on deck to avoid this to spread and affect more people, of course. The next company is called Nanologica. And Nanologica manufactures, develops, and sells nanoporous silica particles for application within life sciences. And the company's vision is to contribute to better and cheaper medicine through porous silica. And with us here we have Andreas Bhagwani, CEO at Nanologica. Please give him a warm hand.
Thank you. So my name is Andreas Bhagwani. I'm the CEO and one of the largest shareholders of Nanologica. I'm here to tell you our plan for the future. In 2 years, we're going to have a sales of something like 10 to 30 million SEK. But the reason why we'll get there is that is basically our vision: better and cheaper medicine through porous silica. So if you're in the life science sector, there are 2 sort of trends that you need to be part of. Either you need to make sure that whatever you do is significantly better than what's out there today. Like in our example, we have a technology for delivery of drugs for severe lung disease. Or you need to be in the trend of that it's significantly cheaper, so that you're a part of making drugs available. In our case, making insulin cheaper. So we didn't believe at all in the concept of a bit better but much more expensive. But starting with our technology, so what is it that we do? So if you have our products in your hand, it's a fine white powder, silicon dioxide. It's basically sand. So when you look into a microscope of these sand grains, you see that they're discrete particles. They're 1 to 10 micron. So you could say either we manufacture them as 1 micron or 10 micron, or somewhere in the middle between. But they're all the same size. If you magnify even more, you can see that it's a porous structure within these particles. So just the pore shape, the pore size, the particle size distribution, we're the best in the world to tailor this. And if you're the best in the world to tailor this, of course you can make unique products. And we have 2 business areas in which that's extremely important. So in chromatography, we purify drugs, peptides, and more specifically drugs for diabetes. And then, of course, that's one type of product that we make. The other, which is quite different, is drug development, where we have a technology that can deliver drugs to the lung that can't be delivered today. But we'll start with chromatography. So what we want to do is basically that we want to peptide manufacturers, we want them to be able to purify their drugs more cost effective, or cheaper, as we say. That's our mission. And the reason why, how it works when you manufacture peptides or insulin products for, like insulin that you use for the treatment of diabetes, is that there are a couple of manufacturing steps, and then there are a couple of purification steps. And we're the last purification step. That step is by far the most expensive and cost-driving step in the whole process. So you have an incoming crude of 75% purity. You pack our particles, which are micron size, into a bed in this large, as you see it here, which is called a DAC column. And then you have the 75% crude, and it comes out, it's 99.2, which is the final product, actually. So this is basically what our product does. So the reason why this is important, and the reason why we can say that we're going to increase our sales many times in a short period of time, is basically this image. So I'm going to stay on this image because this is sort of the underlying driver. There are three main drivers for us. And what you see here are the number of diabetics in Asia. And I'm going to come back to that. That's the most important driver, but I'm going to start with something else. So there is a migration from older drugs, small molecules, to more modern drugs, peptides. And smaller molecules, they don't use our technology to purify. well, some do, but almost all peptides need our type of technology to purify them to a final product. And that's sort of in our segment of the market. This is basically it's a growth of maybe say between 1% and 3% on an annual basis. The second driver, which is more recent, and we don't know how that's going to pan out, is that there are several drugs used for diabetes treatments, GLPs, glucagon-like peptides, already approved and used for diabetes, that are now recently approved for obesity. So it's a completely different and new market, and it's got great expectations, this market. We don't know how it's going to pan out, but it is going to increase our market. But the most important one that we look at here are the number of diabetics in Asia. And you see the two main markets, India and China, where you see almost a doubling of the number of diabetes patients in a 20-year period until 2045. And unfortunately, these figures are very stable. If you look back in time and you look forward in time, it's a pretty solid projection. We are getting heavier. People in Asia are getting heavier, especially in India. They also have a genetically they get diabetes more easily. What we see in India as well is that there are diagnostics becoming more and more available, driving up the number of people needing insulin. But this is not enough, because if you combine, for example, 3 markets that we haven't on here, which are sort of Malaysia, Thailand, and Indonesia, you have other 500 million of patients that need insulin. Unfortunately, if you have diabetes, there are no other drugs that we can see on the horizon. So for at least 15 years, insulin and insulin-like products that actually need our technology will be the only ones available for these kinds of markets. So I would say from a people's health perspective, unfortunately, the market is extremely stable, and the growth is going to be brutal the coming 20 years. Our product, what does it do and how does it compare to our competition? So basically, there are only 3 competitors, 3 players in this field. And this is so we made with an insulin. We had an external lab do testing, and this is what basically came back. So this is the cost to drive the process step that we call polishing, where our product is used. And as you can see, the cost with running with our product is significantly lower. I mean, it is always difficult to do this, and I've discussed this with several customers because it is the kind of conditions. Because in theory, the conditions could be in favor of our product, but when we show this to customers, they become really interested, I would say, because what it basically sees is that in this step, which is the most expensive step, you can lower the cost with 40%. And the question is, how can you do that? Well, there are 2 main drivers. The first one is that our product purifies better. I started with saying that with silica, with one of the teams that are the best ones in the world to do this. So we can control basically the surface properties in a very, very good way. That makes it, and then the product purifies better than competition. The other driver is that it lasts longer. And this is, of course, because we can make a very dense, very hard, and physically and chemically stable product, so it lasts longer. That also influences the cost of manufacturing insulin in this case. But the question is then, okay, so if our product is this good, why don't we have a sales of 250 million already? Well, the reason is that we haven't had the scale. So everything we've delivered up till sort of a year ago, we made from our pilot plant here in Sweden. What we did in 2019 is that we got a larger customer that made a long-term commitment that allowed us to build a manufacturing site, which has been ready since last year, and in a very short period of time, I would say a month or so, we'll deliver the first product from that factory. So we're in a very, very interesting crossroads where we actually will, for the first time, will have, there's so many deals that we've missed just because we haven't had the scale. Because we've been out there with these companies that have tested our products for a very long time, I mean 5-6 years maybe. So now, very soon, we'll have the manufacturing site online, and we'll deliver it. So what do we do then? So then we're launching our product. So these are some images that from the launch. We had sort of a sneak launch basically a month ago when we were in India, which I think will be our most important market, where we had the first physical conference in almost 2 years. And now the team is in the US, they have a couple of conferences, and then we're going to Europe. So our main markets, I would say, is India, China, US, and Europe. And unfortunately, it's difficult still to travel in China, although we're doing that. So what can you expect from the company in chromatography? Well, we have the first order, waiting for the second order. We're going to start manufacturing, and of course we're going to have the first sales. And I hope that this will be done during the launch here now in Q2, Q3. And then we're going to have repeat business so that we can reach our goal, which is a sales of 100 to 300 million SEK in 2024. I'm going to come back to this, but this was so we're switching tracks now from chromatography, from life science tools, to basically, well, this was just a summary slide. But I'm going to come back to this, and now I'm going to talk a bit about drug development. So what we do, we use the same base technology to deliver drugs to the lung that so far have not been able to deliver it to the lung. And we're targeting severe lung disease. So the principle is very simple. You have this porous particle, you fill it, or load it, as we say, with drug product, and then you put it into a dry powder inhaler, you inhale it, and then the particle with the drug inside ends up in the lung, and then the particle dissolves into silicic acid, which we already have in the lung, and then the drug comes out. And there are many drugs that will be able to, that we already know, that we've been able to deliver, to load this way. Now we just need to prove it. And just to give you some, because we believe that we have a unique technology. We had a team that just came back from the US. There was a conference in Florida, which was basically only lung medicine. So when you deliver drugs to the lung, there are several ways you can do that, and basically 3 main ways. So we've got this dry powder inhaler. You have this size inhaler, you inhale, and the suck from your breath releases drug powder, and it ends up in the lung. Then you've got this older version where you have a sort of a canister with gas, you shake it, and then you push it, you get an aerosol, and then you're supposed to inhale at the same time. Same principle, but it's aerosol instead of dry powder. Those are only legacy products. There are many products out there, but there is no development in this field, so I'm not going to talk much about that. And the third one is nebulization, which has a different principle. So a nebulizer could be a machine that is this big, but it could also be large like a room. And basically, it's a different principle because it's you need to breathe in it. So it's basically, instead of this, you have the conventional DPI, it is. And as you can see here, there is a, so first I'm going to say that our product is excellent in delivering asthma drugs. But we're not going to do that because there are affordable drugs that are good already out there. But so we're going to probably stay out of at least the main part of asthma and COPD. But there are other areas, severe lung disease, where there is very, very, very poor treatment, like PAH or IPF, for example. And there are very few treatment options. And as you can see, in, for example, biologics, we can deliver biologics with our technology. We already showed that, but nebulization can do that to some extent. The problem with nebulization is that it takes a lot of time because you every time you might need to breathe in, breathe out for, let's say, 3 to 15 minutes. And if you have a regime, you have multiple drugs that you need to take, and you can end up doing this a lot of the times of your day. So this is something that we're trying to avoid. DPI can't deliver biologics, but we can. So, and the same with poorly solubles. There are no solution for poorly soluble drugs to the lung. Again, this is early stage, but we see a lot of interest in our technology, and we've been around some time, and the amount of traction we see, although it's early stage, is really, really encouraging. But we're going to focus on where we can be unique. It's going to be probably biologics and poorly solubles. So just a short summary. We have a platform, we're focusing on biomolecules, and we're doing internal drug development at the moment. So just a sort of a summary from my side. What we're doing right now in drug development is that we're doing particle modification. So because what we want to do is that we want to have as a broad treatment regime as possible. And this means that we want to be able to deliver large molecules. We want to deliver high-dose molecules, low dose, and of course, several times a day. And that puts strain on our technology, but that's what we do, so that's what we're doing right now. And we want to combine that with see how fast do these particles clear from the lung. You could call it that they dissolve or that they melt in the lung. Because of course, if they melt very fast, we can have, because there's some treatment options that are 6 to 9 times a day. Then of course you need to clear it very fast from the lung, otherwise you'll get accumulation of silica in the lung, and that's probably something that is potentially something that can induce inflammatory response, which you wouldn't want. So that's what we're doing right now. But I would say more importantly, what we're doing now is that we are about to deliver from our factory, from our brand new factory. We're doing our market launch, and we're going to have sales of what we call preparative product, which is in preparative chromatography. So that's pretty much it for me, and thank you for your attention.
Well, thank you very much, Andreas. The first presenter here today is Sigrid Therapeutics. They're sourcing their silica from Japan.
Yeah.
And where do you get your silica from?
We manufacture it ourselves.
You manufacture it? That's the factory that you showed?
Yes.
So the raw components?
Yeah, so we have the same. First of all, Sigrid Therapeutics, I'm a co-founder of Sigrid, so I know them pretty well. And it was actually part of Nanologica until 2014, when we spun it out. But they have a very good manufacturing, they're using a Japanese company. But we're using the same base material as they are doing, but that's sort of industrial scale silica base. And then we do, our manufacturing process is very different from theirs.
Okay. How about the investors listening to you here? What can they look forward to if they invest in, what are the sort of the prognosis, let's say in a 4 or 5 year period?
So in 5-year period, I think we'll have sales between 300 and 500 million SEK. We're probably in clinical stage with our drug development, but I think we're going to see in 5 years' time, it's not only going to be silica. Because if we want to save money for the peptide manufacturers, we're probably going to add on more products. So we're probably going to acquire companies and technologies, but we'll be somewhere in the middle between where the Swedish company Genovis is right now and Biotage. That's my guess in a 5-year time.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.